Whispers in the dark. The small village of Black Hollow lay silent under the cloak of night. Hidden deep within a dense forest, the village had no streetlights, no electricity to pierce the darkness. When dusk arrived, the villagers locked their doors and shuttered their windows. No one dared to roam after sundown. For decades, whispers floated through the cold, still air at night. Unearthly voices carried on the wind. The elders warned that those who listened too closely never returned. But of course, curiosity often outweighed caution. Last winter, 4 young friends, Emily, Jack, Sarah, and Michael, decided to test the legend. They ventured into the forest, to the abandoned mill that stood as the supposed origin of the whispers. Come, the first signs. The mill was an ominous structure, its roof half collapsed and its walls scarred with deep, claw-like marks. Inside, broken machinery sat dormant under a thick layer of dust. But there was something else, a dark stain on the floor. Fresh. "This place gives me the creeps," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't be ridiculous," Jack said. "It's just an old building." As the clock struck midnight, the first whispers came. At first, they were faint, like leaves brushing against each other. But then the voices grew clearer. "Can you hear us? Help us." Emily's heart pounded as she turned to her friends. "This isn't normal. Someone's here." Before anyone could respond, Michael froze. His flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into near-total darkness. From the corner of the room, a shadow moved. It wasn't just the absence of light, it was something alive. Terror unleashed. The shadow loomed impossibly tall, its limbs elongated and twisted. It moved with an unnatural, jerky grace, and its hollow eyes glowed faintly. "Run!" Michael screamed, but his voice was cut off as the shadow lunged at him. Its spindly fingers wrapped around his throat, lifting him off the ground. His friends could only watch in horror as he gasped for air, his face turning pale before the shadow discarded him like a broken doll. Emily grabbed Sarah and Jack, pulling them toward the door. But the mill was no longer the same. The doorway was gone, replaced by a solid wall of rotting wood. "Where's the exit?" Jack shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Behind them, a low, guttural laugh echoed, sending chills down their spines. Jack spun around, his flashlight illuminating a message carved into the wall. "You cannot leave. Dakra, no escape." Emily spotted a broken window high above them. "That's our way out," she yelled. They scrambled toward it, but Jack tripped and fell. The shadow seized its opportunity, dragging him into the darkness. His screams faded, replaced by the whispers, now louder and more menacing. Emily and Sarah climbed through the window, cutting their hands on the jagged glass. They stumbled into the forest, running blindly toward the village. When they finally reached the edge of Black Hollow, they stopped in their tracks. The village was no longer there. In its place stood rows of ancient, crumbling gravestones. Each bore a name they recognized, names of people who had disappeared over the years. "What is this?" Sarah stammered, tears streaming down her face. Emily turned to her, but before she could respond, the whispers began again. "Welcome home." The last thing they saw was the shadow emerging from the forest, its arms outstretched to claim them. Black Hollow remains silent to this day, its inhabitants gone, its streets empty. But if you venture too close at night, you might hear the whispers. And if you listen too closely, you'll never return.